But I'm actually not talking about global warming when I say we're running out of time. I'm talking about a far more dangerous problem for our society than climate change. I'm talking about cancel culture. Because I'm going to let you all in on a little secret. The weather is not going to kill us all in 10 years. It won't. I promise you that. It is going to be fine. Plastic straws are not the enemy. Live your lives and breathe easy. Breathe out all that carbon dioxide. You will live. Of far greater concern to society is the recent scourge of cancel culture, which threatens to make our public discourse coarser, falser, and crueler. Cancel culture takes two forms. In one version, cancel culture occurs when a once obscure individual achieves some modicum of fame or success, at which point a social media swarm stirs up and digs up some tweet that that guy sent 10 years ago, at which point his achievement is totally taken away from him and he is canceled. So for instance, the comedian Kevin Hart comes from nothing, works his way up in one of the toughest businesses around, actually in one of the toughest aspects of one of the toughest businesses. He's not just in show business, he's in comedy. He makes it to the absolute pinnacle of success. He gets invited to host the Oscars. And then some guy on the internet dug up some offensive joke that he made 10 years ago that is no longer socially acceptable. No joke is socially acceptable anymore, and certainly not the ones he told. And so it's taken away from him. The Academy fires him. Kevin Hart is canceled. Even the kindest of souls find themselves subject to this sort of cancel culture. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about a guy named Carson King. Just recently, an Iowa football fan. Carson King held up a sign at a game that said, "Please send beer money." And it included his Venmo address. Now we have some people leaving. They're canceling Carson King too. Well, I'll tell you about Carson King, and you can leave him if you want. He held up that sign and raised $1 million. And the reaction that he got from the American public was exactly the reaction that we're seeing in this room. People who don't want to listen to a thing, who don't want to look at grace, who don't want to live in a culture that takes each other seriously, but a culture that merely wants to rip people down for no reason. Now, the one positive thing about that culture is the minute that all the schmucks leave, the positive thing is the minute all the schmucks leave, the people who are waiting in line all the way out the door, they get to come in and fill the seats. So welcome to those of you who were not here before. But it's actually a very good example of this. Carson King, he raises $1 million because he holds up a sign at an Iowa game. Now, if I raised $1 million, what I would do at that point, most likely, is purchase an island. I'd look at some charities and to make myself feel good, and then I would go buy an island. I couldn't buy a nice island because it's only $1 million, but I could buy some kind of island. And that's what I would do, because I'm me. I'm not Carson King. What Carson King did is he took the $1 million and he donated it to a children's hospital. The guy doesn't come from money. The guy doesn't make a lot of money. And he gave the money to a hospital. What a great guy, huh? No way that guy gets canceled, right? Well, you would be wrong because of cancel culture. A swarm of people on social media, I think it was actually just a reporter for the Des Moines Register, went through, dug up some old tweets he sent making offensive jokes. Now Carson King is canceled. His reputation is tarnished. A prospective sponsorship deal with a beer company is over. Carson's done. Even that guy, the guy's like a walking saint. That's one way that cancel culture works. You make it big, someone finds something bad you did 10 years ago, and you're finished. There's another version of cancel culture, which occurs when a conservative or a moderate or even an independent-minded liberal makes a true statement that contradicts some aspect of politically correct speech or politically correct orthodoxy. Then, you know what happens. A social media swarm springs up and pressures platforms to ban that individual. So for instance, last year, the left-wing writer Meghan Murphy was kicked off of Twitter. Meghan Murphy is not a conservative. Meghan Murphy is not a moderate. She is a left-wing feminist. She's the founder of the feminist journal, Feminist Current. But Meghan Murphy made a big mistake. She contradicted the politically correct left. She made a statement that was unacceptable to the politically correct left for the last 5 minutes. You know what that statement was? She tweeted out, "Women aren't men." It's awful, I know. Sends a shiver down my spine to think of it. Now, of course, the statement is true, but that's the point. It doesn't matter that it's true. It's actually the topic of tonight's speech, really the whole tour. In fact, what we find is very often the truer a statement is, the more liable it is to incur the ire of cancel culture. Cancel culture is political correctness with teeth. Political correctness is the leftist speech codes and behavior codes that we all make fun of because they're so ridiculous. Cancel culture is the mutant spawn of political correctness. Cancel culture is what happens when you contradict those codes of speech and behavior that political correctness dictates.